Welcome back. Most of us know Facebook. Some of us practically live on it. But until recently, few of us realized how our information on Facebook was being sold off to a firm, Cambridge Analytica, which in a way weaponized it during the 2016 presidential campaign in support of President Trump. Congress and the special counsel are now investigating, but here's the question. Could these two types of tools be used in local congressional races? What about races for the State House, the State Senate, County Commission? Even the school board. Joining us for more, Kate Connolly, political director at One Brand Marketing, Michael Barfield, the brand new president of the Florida ACLU, and Shane Hartman, a cybersecurity expert at USF Sarasota Manatee. Welcome to you all. Kate, let me put that question to you right now because you are involved in a lot of local races in our area. Are some of these techniques being used here locally?
I do believe they are being used. I do believe there's also a great benefit on state levels and national levels because they have more money to spend on this type of targeting.
Well, let's get right to it. How expensive is this?
It greatly varies on how many people you're trying to target, how many impressions you are serving them, and how many data points you are filtering your targeting in on.
Michael, explain your concern because as we were talking before the show, in a way, this has been going on for years now. I heard stories that, with the Obama campaign in 2008 was able to buy the list of people who would subscribe to certain magazines and therefore know exactly who they're targeting.
Well, digital data is easily exportable and can be manipulated in such a way that political campaigns and other people will take that data and use it for whatever purpose they see. And Americans are generally, Facebook was sort of this explosive new social media atmosphere that we're in, that people are just willing to give up information about themselves that previously had been kept private.
But as that cyber expert showed Adam in his story, I mean, Facebook, Google, all those other companies, they have basically, it's all out there when you sign up. People may not read it, but isn't that our fault that we're not reading what we're accepting?
We do share some of the blame for sure. When you download apps, who goes through the terms and conditions, 39 pages? But the providers also have a responsibility to make it clear and direct of what information that you're giving up and what it's going to be used for.
Shane, now we're seeing Congress finally, maybe after the horses come home, the barnyard door metaphor, they may be putting regulations on Facebook, but there's another line from a movie, Jurassic Park, that nature will find a way. So even if they regulate Facebook and other platforms, is it likely that people who are interested in doing this will just find other ways?
Oh, absolutely. You've got Amazon, you've got Google, you've got Microsoft. You have a myriad of different places you can go to collect that data. So if they just close the door on Facebook, they'll just look at other places to get that. People have a tendency to want to put information out there, YouTube videos, you name it, it's out there, so they're going to try to collect it. And they're not going to, until they regulate every one of those, if that's where they go, then that's where they'll be.
Kate, in terms of some of the reporting I've seen, it is still unclear how effective it was during the 2016 campaign, whether people's votes were changed, whether President Trump got more votes because of the ads that were on Facebook.
I think the most effective aspect of using this kind of data is by micro-targeting, which was a very effective tactic used during the Trump campaign and could be very effective locally. By micro-targeting, you can determine who is going to react positively or not react at all to certain ads, and you can limit your spend on smaller micro-targets. And then if they are successful, you can scale that spend and target many more people. And in that way, it reduces waste of campaign dollars and could greatly increase the benefits of their advertising.
Okay, we are just getting warmed up. We'll have much more on Facebook and Cambridge Analytica right after we check the first alert weather, so stay with us. Welcome back. We are talking about whether the tricks and the manipulation we're learning about from Facebook and Cambridge Analytica could be used in local political campaigns right here on the Sun Coast. And joining us for more are Kate Connolly, Political Director of One Brand Marketing, Michael Barfield, the brand new president of the Florida ACLU, and Shane Hartman, a cybersecurity expert at USF Sarasota Manatee. We don't even have to ask the question whether local campaigns will be using this. There's a story that I pulled up here from California that 2 Republican congressional candidates hired Cambridge Analytica. And in one case, Cambridge helped one candidate's campaign produce ads targeting people who were predicted to be off-road vehicle enthusiasts and tell them that the candidate had a record of supporting off-road vehicles. Kate, does that necessarily mean that they're going to vote for your candidate?
It may or may not mean that. I think most importantly, it means that you are determining that the person who would most care about this issue is seeing that information. So these off-road enthusiasts know that the candidate is supporting them, and hopefully they will support him in turn.
You know, the conversation over the last few days is what regulations should Congress put on Facebook and other platforms to prevent this from happening again. On the other hand, I heard someone say on one of the networks this morning, the question what we should be asking is what can the government do to stop or to help platforms like Facebook stop these kinds of intrusions?
That's a good question, because until you take, I go to the theory that there's no such thing as a free lunch. Facebook is free. How do you think they make their revenue? They have to sell it. Same thing with Google. Offers a free service. So until you change the business model, you're not going to change the exporting and selling of data.
The business model being that companies like Facebook are selling your personal information to whoever they want to.
Correct.
You know, Shane, in terms of the cybersecurity issue, I know that there are a lot of companies around there who are looking for experts like you to help them how to keep their own infrastructure more secure and prevent the illegal taking of information. Are most companies prepared for that, or are they really behind?
Some are proactive. It depends a lot on the size and scale of the company. The bigger they are, the more potential or surface areas, we like to call it, that they have for compromises. And that entails that you have to spend more time, more effort, and more money to try to patch those holes before it gets out of hand.
And Kate, you know, going back to our original premise, and I know this is expensive to buy this information and to use it, but if you were running a school board race here in Sarasota or Manatee or a state house race, do you aspire to be able to micro-target your voter out there and get information that will lead you to target possible voters?
Absolutely. The whole aspect of targeting is best done when scaled from a low level to a high level. So once we know that it is being used effectively, you would invest more to target more people in the same matter. And I think that's something that can be done on a local level just as well as it is being done on state and national levels.
So Michael, what does the ACLU do about this? Obviously you've been involved in this issue on a grand scale, but you know, there are a lot of people who live here on the Sun Coast who say, you know what, my vote was not changed in the last election by this.
Well, I think that a lot of people need to understand that their data is out there and what they're putting out there, and that it can be sold. And I think Facebook at a minimum needs to understand, have their users understand what the limits of that are, who they are selling it to, and how it's being used, and to be able to opt out of that. Regulation from Congress, generally in this area of law, freedom of speech, it's very difficult to regulate.
So Shane, is the other concern, as we mentioned, you know, it's one thing to buy this information from Facebook, but there is concern out there about hackers hacking it from other databases that you would hope would be more secure?
Absolutely. I mean, Equifax breach, OPM, all those. You got I find the Facebook one to be egregious in one sense, but I find the things with Equifax to be a lot worse, because that type of data is not only going to be used against you, not so much in a political ad, but it's going to be used to either do identity theft or things that will directly affect you in a negative way.
And Kate, we're mostly talking about local political campaigns here, but what about local businesses who want to sell a product, whether it's clothing or a restaurant or so forth? Do you see local businesses hiring firms to help them better micro-target who their audience and who their customer might be?
Absolutely, 100%. I think that that is a huge goal for all small businesses, because they are seeking to gain the most outreach with the least investment to most effectively use their budget. And as a specialist in digital advertising, it is most common for local small businesses to want to start with digital advertising before they scale up.
Is there enough public information out there gotten through legal and open means to allow companies to target their goals rather than getting, information from Facebook in the way that we are so concerned about now?
I believe so. I think that there is much more information available on Facebook. I also think that there's plenty of information available through targeting on Facebook by buying your own ad sets without having to purchase large data sets from companies like Cambridge Analytica, which is a big difference in how I think local campaigns or local businesses may apply Facebook advertising as opposed to Fortune 500 companies or national campaigns that may be purchasing this large data sets.
Michael, is this a case that, people who are watching this tonight should just get used to it? Your information is out there, and there's very little that the government or, large companies can do to prevent that at this point?
Well, I think the voters in this context could do things proactively, demand that candidates take a pledge. Have you used any type of data analysis, purchase of data set points that for your campaign to target individuals? That's one thing. Regulation is perhaps another, but also not putting so much information about oneself is an option as well.
And I also see there are cases in Florida, and I don't want to name the candidates. There's one particular candidate for a governor where there are questions about the relationship between him and Cambridge Analytica and whether or not that they used the information in past campaigns. I would imagine, Kate, that is going to become a real bone of contention in political races. But the bottom line, are voters apt to vote on this kind of issue, or more like bread and butter issues that like the economy in their own wallet or purse?
That's a great question. I do agree with you. I think there will be a time where candidates are making pledges that they are not using ill-bought data sets, and I do think that that could become a bread and butter conversation, much like campaign finance reform, where voters are now talking about this on a daily basis, and it becomes layman's prime concern that their data is being used inappropriately and that somebody they could be voting for has purchased these data sets from illegitimate sources, as opposed to maybe going through public channels and advertising how they purchase that data.
Finally, Shane, how much of this is a policy issue and how much of it is a technology issue in terms of having systems out there to prevent this from happening?
Well, on the preventive side, it's more of probably a technology issue. The technology has grown quicker than any type of policy could possibly keep up with it, and it will continue that way for the foreseeable future until people stop putting stuff out there or not using that technology. The policy side is going to take a while for it to catch up.
All right, we have to take a quick break, and we'll be back for final thoughts in a moment. Stay with us. And our guests join us right now for final thoughts. And Kate, let me start with you. In terms of this election cycle, the midterms, is it safe to say that every candidate from Senate to Congress to your local school board is using information to target their voters in a certain way, or are there still some campaigns who are basically behind the times?
I think that every campaign is targeting voters and always has, whether it's through mail or otherwise, but I do believe every strong campaign right now from the school board level all the way up to congressional and presidential in 2020 will be using this information with digital advertising, and mostly probably through simplistic Facebook advertising, if not more sophisticated through certain data sets.
You know, Michael, I asked this question on a lot of different issues. Do other countries do it better than we do in terms of safeguarding your personal information?
Yes, Europe is light years ahead of us in data collection practices of big corporations. The two most important tools they use to do that is data retention policies. They force corporations to purge data after a very limited period of time, and second, precluding their sale of that data, users' data, of collecting information about consumers.
Shane, presumably Congress might do something in terms of regulating Facebook and Google and those other platforms here, but is it really kind of the genie is already out of the bottle, or do you have any hopes that this government and our country will find a way to actually better protect people's privacy?
I think there'll be some of that that'll come through, but we're a country that we're based on a freedom that we can do relatively what we want. So in that context, you should protect yourself first before you rely on the government to protect you.
All right, thank you all. Before we go, we want to share with you what some of you had to say about last night's show, the ongoing search for missing Sarasota teenager Jabez Spann. It has been 7 months since Spann disappeared. The teen was last seen Labor Day weekend. Rumor has it that he witnessed a murder a few days before he went missing. Tips are still coming in, but not as frequently as they once were. We went to Facebook to hear your thoughts, and Shannon says this poor child is not getting what he needs from this community. It's heartbreaking and so wrong. Susan says, increase the reward. If that was my child, I would be holding a bake sale and fundraisers within the community to add to the reward money. Money loosens even the tightest lips. Shannon says, sadly, his own community has no interest in finding him. The county government, law enforcement, etc. can't do a thing without leads or information. Information as community has no intention of giving. And Shannon says, it is sad, but until the community changes, nothing changes. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation on tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/mysuncoast.com.abc7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. We want to thank all our guests for being here tonight. Kay Connolly is Political Director at One Brand Marketing. Michael Barfield is the brand new president of the Florida ACLU. And Shane Hartman is a cybersecurity expert at USF Sarasota Manatee. When we return, we'll have a final look at your first alert weather. Plus, another high-profile Republican congressman announces he will not seek re-election. Stay with us.